Hi, welcome to the Harvest Table. Today we're going to be having a Bible study from St. John chapter 11, verses 1 through 45. And I am not going to read them. It's a story many of us are familiar with about Mary and Martha and their brother Lazarus and Jesus, who Lazarus was a friend to, and Jesus loved Lazarus, and Lazarus loved Jesus. And the title of our subject today is going to be called If Only. And we all have situations where we say if only, don't we? Today we're going to see what that looked like in this story. We're going to talk about Mary and Martha, and I'm going to talk about two sisters with two different responses. And one of the responses is from Martha in John chapter 11, verse 21. Martha said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But in verse 22, she went on to say, but even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask. So that's Martha's response. And in chapter 11, verse 32, we find it says, when Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet, weeping, and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. And that's it. She didn't go on. She didn't say anything else. She was weeping at his feet. So it's two different responses. And sometimes, like Martha, we find ourselves in the middle of the road, standing there, struggling with a mess. We could be struggling with pain, with grief, with thoughts, if only. Sometimes it's a nostalgia kind of thing where we look at the past and say, oh, if only things had been like this, if only that had not happened, if only. And sometimes we say, if only I had stayed in that place, or if only I had kept that job. So many things we can look back on and say, if only. And I know for me a big one is I always say, if only I had been born to parents that wanted me, what would my life have been like? How different would it have been? Two loving parents certainly makes a difference in the life of a child, doesn't it? But everyone has a with only moment, an if only moment, excuse me. But the truth is there's no going back. We can't change the past, can we? We have to keep the if onlys and yesterday. But there's a point in this encounter Martha had with Jesus that I don't want us to miss. And that point is this. Jesus meets us exactly where we are. Your silent screams, your intense anger, your deep grief, your bitter regret. In all circumstances, he comes to where we are. If you look at these verses, verse 21 and verse 32, you find Mary and Martha were really in two different places in their grief. It was grieving over the same brother, but two individuals handled it differently. And no matter what your grief is and how many other people have experienced a similar situation, they're not going to experience it like you. Your situation is unique to you and your emotions, your faith, your lack of faith, your prior experiences, your environment, so many things affect your response. But it doesn't matter how different our responses are, we have the same Jesus, and he comes to where we are. And he knows the regret, he knows the anger, he knows the weeping, but he doesn't leave us there. You will note in the scripture that it says Jesus wept too. He wept with Mary. He felt the grief of losing someone he loved. And so Jesus knows what that feels like. But he didn't stop at the grieving, at the weeping, did he? He said to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. In other words, the situation we are currently in may look like one thing and seem like that's all there is. But that's not the end of the story. Jesus takes our if only and he works in a new way. He brings God's future into our present and releases glorious things. It may be something you never even seen as possible. But God specializes in the impossible. And I dare say it would be 100% accurate to think that when Mary and Martha were there to meet Jesus, they didn't think, oh, I can't wait to see he's going to raise Lazarus from the grave. They didn't think that. That would have seemed impossible to them. But the impossible that day was Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, didn't he? And he told them, if you only believe, all things are possible. What's impossible will be transformed into a new reality for you today as well, no matter what your situation. I don't know what God will do, but I know that he can and he will do it for you. The only, if only, he adds, for our situation is only believe. Go to God today and talk to him about whatever your if only moments are. He's waiting not only to listen, to care, to reach out and touch you and comfort you where you are, but he's waiting also to transform those if onlys into a new and glorious thing. You don't have to bear your burdens alone. So I just hope that brings encouragement to you today, because God never ever stops where we stop. Where our strength fails, God steps in. Where our faith fails, God's hope shines a new light. He directs a new path for us and leads us in paths of righteousness. So I want to leave you with that hope and encouragement today, and know that I am praying with you. And you can always send me a message here if you want me to pray about a specific request. But whether you send one or not, I'm still praying for anyone who is in that place today where they're saying, if only. I'm praying that God will reach out and you'll allow him to transform your path today. God bless you. I'll see you next time.